Kamala Harris's memoir about her time as the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee, called 107 Days, comes out on Tuesday, September 23rd. We've already gotten some excerpts from the book, and I will tell you, I am stunned at how candid Kamala Harris is about pretty much everyone. And it makes me wonder, what is she up to? Why is she being so honest about the people around her in the Democratic Party and what she after? So let's talk about first what she says, and then let's talk about why she's saying it. So the big headline, the first big story, the first big excerpt that came out was Harris writing about Biden and her relationship with Joe Biden, which is obviously at the core of this whole book and her whole political persona at this point. And in 107 Days, this memoir, she writes that she ultimately concluded that Joe Biden's decision to run for a second term was a case of recklessness, that's her word, and that the Democratic Party let one person's ego and ambition get in the way of the stakes of beating Donald Trump, which is kind of a wow from my perspective. Now, I think that's right, by the way. I think Harris is correct in that assessment. I think it was always clear that Joe Biden, according to a majority of the American public, was too old to run for a second term. That's what the public thought of Joe Biden. And yet Biden ignored it, as did his aides. So I do think it was an act of ego and ambition, and it was reckless. But for Kamala Harris to say that after she ran an entire campaign for 107 days, where she made clear she wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden, that he had been an amazing president, is kind of eye-opening. Now, that was only the first of a bunch of things she said about Biden and about people like Pete Buttigieg and Josh Shapiro and Gavin Newsom. And I'm going to go through all of that in a minute and tell you why I think it matters and what I think she's up to. Before I do that, I want you to subscribe to this channel. This is my pitch. It's 2 words: independent, authentic. Independent from big corporate media, that's me. Independent from the 2 political parties, that's me. Authentic. I'm always going to tell you what I think based on my years of reporting, my sources, and my knowledge and analysis of this world. I'm never going to tell you what you want to hear. I am not in the fan service business. I'm in the honesty business. I hope you'll subscribe. Okay, what else do we know that Harris has said? Well, other excerpts have come out as the book has gotten closer to being released. One that I was really stunned by was Harris recounts that before her one and only debate with Donald Trump in the fall, she's in a hotel room. It's literally right before the debate. And Biden calls her, Joe Biden himself. And Biden says that he heard from his brother in Philadelphia that his brother and the people in Philadelphia say that they've heard that Kamala Harris is bad-mouthing Joe Biden. Okay, it's a real game of telephone here. Remember, politics is just like high school. I heard from this one that you were saying bad things about that one. Anyway, and Biden essentially uses that moment to say, no distance between the 2 of us. We've got to stay, super aligned, which again, isn't really in Kamala Harris's political interest because Joe Biden's an unpopular president. She needed to distance herself from him. But to call, so that call is weird no matter what. My brother heard you were bad-mouthing me. Okay. But second, to call her right before the debate with Donald Trump, not great timing. And I think a sign, at least Harris saw it as a sign, that Biden was much more focused on Biden than he was about Harris winning an election and keeping Donald Trump out of the White House. While all of that is true about Biden, and I think Harris's sort of recounting of it seems accurate and I would say fair, there's a bunch of other stuff that she says in this book that, again, I am really surprised by. So let's just go through. She talks about her VP selection process. And the thing that's gotten the biggest headlines is, at least to date, is Harris writes that she wanted to pick Pete Buttigieg, who at the time was the head of the Department of Transportation in the Biden administration, had been the former mayor of South Bend, had run for president in 2020. And the reason that she says she didn't pick Buttigieg was that she did not believe America was ready for a Black woman as the presidential nominee and a gay man as the vice presidential nominee. Again, I think that's an argument that can be made. I'm just surprised that she wrote it. Buttigieg came out and said, I'm disappointed when this all came out. I'm disappointed because, I have more faith in the American public, which is a smart thing for Pete Buttigieg to say, but kind of amazing that she said it, in my opinion. She talked about Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who I think she probably should have picked as VP. And she basically said he was too focused on what was in it for him. He wanted to be in all the meetings. He was going to be more of a problem than he was worth. She talks about Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who she didn't consider for VP. They're both from the same state, so it wouldn't work anyway. But that he was one of, I think, a dozen people on her call sheet right when Biden dropped out to kind of immediately secure their support, largely because Newsom, if he had run, could have been a problem for Harris in a very quick primary. That Newsom texted her and said he was hiking and that he would call back later and that he never called back. Now, for anyone who knows the relationship between Harris and Newsom, or the lack thereof, they've always been rivals. So I guess this isn't super surprising. Newsom was probably pissed. But just that she is willing to do all of this kind of gossip, like airing of dirty laundry, it makes me wonder what's going on here. So the two options, as I see it, in terms of what's Kamala Harris's strategy in being so candid in this book. Number one option, she's not going to run for anything in the future, and she wants to say what she needs to say. Number two, she's going to run, but it's going to be as this kind of more freewheeling, I say whatever I think kind of candidate in 2028, and this is laying the groundwork for it. Now, let me argue both of those, but first I want to read this quote from David Axelrod, who was Obama's longtime strategist. He gave this quote about Harris's book to Politico. He said, quote, "If there's a political strategy here, it's a bad one," which is interesting. So when Harris, let me go through both of the options. Option one being she's not going to run for anything else in the future, and so she's just saying what she thinks about everybody, right? It's kind of Harris unbound. When Harris said she wasn't going to run for governor of California in 2026, a race I think she probably would have won, the assumption was, oh, well, she's going to run for president. And she still has not ruled out running for president in 2028. The only thing I'll say is she's still relatively young. I think she's in her late 50s. She could have a very lucrative career outside of politics. And then let's say a Democrat gets elected president and there's a Supreme Court opening. You could see her being up for that. She's always been more legally minded than politically minded in my opinion. So, maybe she's kind of made a decision in her mind that she's probably not going to run for president in 2028 and that she's kind of leaving that option out there because she wants to remain relevant, wants to sell books, etc. But that in her mind, she's already done with all of this. And that's why she's kind of blowing everybody up and telling everybody what she really thinks of them. Option two is the more strategic one, which is the knock on her has always been she's sort of inauthentic, doesn't really know what she believes, kind of vanilla, always playing it safe, doesn't take any risks. Well, writing a memoir where you kind of really take on a lot of the people with whom presumably you are friends and certainly colleagues, and that you will see again, is that an attempt by Harris to position herself differently because she is going to run for president in 2028. And she's going to say, I learned my lessons in 2024. I played too nice. I'm not going to play nice anymore. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of everyone and tap into that idea that people really like of authenticity and being an outsider. Now, can someone who's been the vice president of the United States and a California senator be an outsider? It's not easily done, but the kind of truth teller authenticity vibe is something that I think really appeals to people. So I could see her trying to move that way. It seems to me it's one of those two options. I honestly can't figure out which one it is, what she's going for here. But I will tell you that book is a must read. I want to know who else she talks about, what else she really thinks. And I think a lot of voters are probably wondering, where was this Kamala Harris in 2024, right? Why was she so boring and painting by numbers and playing within a very small box then, and now she's kind of being more candid? Maybe it's because she doesn't care anymore, she's not running, or maybe it's trying to turn over a new leaf. We'll see. As I said before, I hope you subscribe. We're almost to 120,000 subscribers, which is so awesome. Thank you to every single person who's joined. I very much appreciate it. I also hope you like and comment on this video. That helps me get my content out through the YouTube algorithm, the people who aren't subscribers already. Last thing, tell a friend, tell an acquaintance, tell a colleague about what I'm building here and why you think it's important heading into 2026. Spread the word. Be an evangelist for me. Thanks, and take good care.